Fans of the Level 5 franchise Inazuma 11 released an English patch of the game Inazuma 11 Go Galaxy. Inazuma 11, a video game series released in 2008, has regained traction as the original audience now become young adults, rediscovering this series via online means. The video game franchise spans a total of 6 games, not including spin-offs, but only 5 are fully translated into the English language. That one other game, however, was Inazuma 11 Go Galaxy, and a dedicated team of fans, dubbed Level 10, would eventually set off to fix that. But why did they even have to do this in the first place? Well, a European tech company that ironically wasn't Samsung owned the trademark to the word Galaxy in the technology sector, and therefore Level 5, the original developers, could not use the name. The lawsuit got settled later on, and Level 5 successfully registered their trademark, Inazuma 11 Go Galaxy, with the European Union Intellectual Property Office on August 21st, 2018, one day before the series' 10th anniversary. According to inside sources, the formation of the Level 10 team began on March 31st, 2019 with version 1 of the patch releasing on the 3rd of July, 2020. The leader of the project, Sync, did the majority of the bug fixes and worked alongside Antang in the graphics design field. The programmers, Destiny and One Piece Freak, assisted in getting the game set up and running, taking advantage of soft modding the Nintendo 3DS to get this project off the ground. The translators did an amazing job to help translate the game's text into English, with the rest of the team, TaleOfTheToaster, Crimson, Hind, Sejo, Nepslit, Zakira AK, Galax, Apollyon, and HMAZ working on localization to make it more like an official dub. And I really do apologize if I butchered those names in any way, but the names will be up on the screen right now. This is where you meet TaleOfTheToaster, an Inazuma 11 YouTuber since 2015 who rose to prominence by uploading lengthy, entertaining, yet detailed gameplays and analysis of the Inazuma 11 franchise. He joined the Level 10 team on August 15th. In a written statement about the development, he said, "When I joined, the first 3 chapters had already been translated, but were in need of extra localization to clean up the grammar and make the dialogue feel more like an original dub, which I ended up gradually doing for all 10 chapters of main story dialogue over the course of the following year." In March 2021, the Level 10 team uncovered the original Portuguese dub of the Inazuma 11 Go Galaxy anime, and since the Portuguese and English dub share similar names for their movesets, this made localizing the game much easier. But enough about written statements, we have him here live on the program, so thanks for coming on.
Hello, Advardi. Thank you for bringing me on for some questions.
So first of all, I just want to say, you're probably one of the most well-known Inazuma YouTubers. It's like every single one that I've at least I've ever watched has some connections to you. But some of my audience may not be familiar, so can you introduce yourself to them?
Yeah, of course. So I'm TaleOfTheToaster. I guess like I've been introduced, one of the principal English language Inazuma 11 content creators on YouTube. There are certainly plenty more out there who make videos in their own languages like Spanish and Italian that are even bigger. But I guess looking from an English language point of view, I guess I'm the most well known, or at least well up there. And then anyone else who's trying to get into it usually ends up involved with me somehow. So it's all a nice little tight knit crew. And that of course involves the Go Galaxy patch.
So, being that you're primarily a YouTuber, what made you want to get into this game development type of thing with the Go Galaxy patch?
Is at the end of the day, if you want a job done right, you do it yourself, you know? And as a YouTuber, I would want to make videos on Inazuma 11 Go Galaxy. But that's only going to be possible if there is an Inazuma 11 Go Galaxy to play. I certainly didn't set up the project, though I'm sure it's already been said. I was kind of invited to join it by the project leader, Sync. And I didn't kind of do that immediately either, because I had no idea how far along it was. There's been other attempts to translate the game in the past that didn't get very far. So there was no way of knowing that this was going to be the one. But as soon as it kind of had a bit of evidence to suggest this is really going to happen, I got myself involved with that because I know that I was already mid Let's Play of Inazuma 11 Go Chrono Stones at that point. Galaxy, in theory, should be immediately afterwards, so we had to kind of get things moving if we were going to make that a possibility.
Take me behind the development process a bit. You did localization, right?
Yeah, so nothing to do with programming the game is my forte at all, or even putting the stuff into the game. I think I eventually learned how to do that. And I certainly don't speak any Japanese, so that definitely, when we say localization, that's different from translation. We had translators on the team who turned the game from Japanese into English, but obviously, if they were kind of natively Japanese or from somewhere else and just happened to understand a bit of both Japanese and English, what they really needed on the team was someone who's kind of familiar with the official English dubs for the video games, because they're very, very British. If ever you've played an English language Inazuma 11 game, there are many things that will come out of the characters' mouths, especially the likes of Sean Frost and Darren LaChance, that are just extremely British. The kind of thing that you could only really write within the UK. So they basically needed my help in touching up any of the grammar errors, the spelling mistakes, and helping it feel a bit more British in dressing it up. So I took the lines that had already been translated into English for this story and then just kind of improved them a bit to make it feel a bit more real.
So, how long did this entire localization section take, give or take?
It kind of comes into two halves, because we did the story files first, and that was the essentials to get the game quote-unquote finished for version 1. And that happened over the course of a few months, I would say. Like, I joined by localizing Chapter 1's dialogue, and then we had a big hiatus while people had other stuff to work on. But then suddenly, Chapters 5 through 10, they really happened back to back to back. And I tried to keep up with that pace. So those all happened over the course of a couple of weeks. But then localizing all of those was only really bringing us to the end of version 1. The job wasn't necessarily done there, so kind of a few months have passed. But then we basically spent nearly another year of just improvements beyond that with the localization, which involved me, once we'd finished version 1 and released that to the public, that meant that I could play through the game myself as slowly as possible, finding every piece of dialogue in the overworld and just checking it to see, how could we make that better, fix any errors, spellings, that kind of thing. I'd just take a picture of it and then send it to Sync or Yellow Wool, or especially towards the end, Sejo was doing a lot. I'd take a picture and then the rest of the team would actually make the fix within the game itself. But that, especially once we learned about the official English names for the moves during this 1 year period, that kind of, version 1 to version 2 was basically a full-on localization process, and that itself was nearly a year. So kind of the refining took a lot longer than the actual original process took, you could say. But I guess my job was only focused on the story files to begin with, whereas this was now everything over the course of the rest of it.
So, during the whole project, what would you say what was the most difficult for you?
Just knowing that I was capturing quite a lot of errors, all things considered, and I had to rely on somebody else to fix them for me. So you kind of had to know that you feel a little bit guilty if you've taken too many error fixes in one day, because you know that one guy's got to go through all that himself and fix it on my behalf. I was the playtester, and then Sync would do the actual bug fixing, and sometimes it would amount to a lot, and you almost feel like, should I take a couple less photos just to make sure that this actually goes ahead? But in the end, it did. Sync carried the whole job all the way up to Chapter 8, and then I believe it was Sejo that did the final 2 chapters. Just kind of not trying to overwork everyone else was probably the biggest challenge. I think I did miss quite a lot of fixes that I would have made as well in the first couple of chapters when I wasn't quite sure, is this worth fixing, whereas towards the end, anything that I thought was fixing I was taking photos of, but I maybe missed a few in the start to try and not burden the other people.
So, uh, that being said, like, what was the hardest part for the entire team? Now, it's hard for one person to speak on behalf of the other team, the entire team, but like, from your perspective, what was the hardest part for the entire team?
Probably an extension of the same thing, trying not to lump too much on one guy, because it makes sense that only one guy's really going to be editing the actual game itself, so that nobody who doesn't understand it just breaks it, or if somebody overwrites the other person's progress. That just meant that anything we needed to do was eventually going to come back to sync. And it's kind of managing our own expectations of what we can lump onto one guy and how quickly we can expect that turned around. And really, I think he was a bit of a hero. I don't know how he managed to do everything that he did within such a short space of time. But basically, if we didn't have sync for any period of time, then nothing could be done, So it's, just structuring ourselves around the team leader to make sure it's doable and that we're not going to send him to an early grave.
Okay, that being said, no, I watched a couple of your Let's Plays. I watched every single one of them. You briefly mentioned in one of the episodes, I can't remember which one off the top of my head, how cool it would be to have voice clips in the game. Are there planes? Sorry, are there plans to add that in a future version of the patch?
Definitely, yeah. It would be an optional version, of course, because many people would want to be purists as such and keep their Japanese voice acting. We certainly don't have any patches with the Japanese move names back in. We we love our little dub names. That would be down to someone else to make an undub patch. I don't know if that's happening, but it wouldn't be us. But the voice acted patch is in the early stages. Really, we've got voice actors kind of assigned to each character, or at least for the first chapter and all the major ones. But before we can really work on the lines for the characters, we need to work on localizing the songs, which is a bigger task probably. We've got some nice little bits done there. Actually, I'm excited for the general public to see that. The voice acted patch is kind of in progress, but it's not really got a firm time frame or anything. The whole crew is in there ready to go, but we need to round up all the lines for people and figure out any characters that we've missed and failed to assign. So it could be a long time, but it's in the works.
Okay, so I'm jumping around a lot here because I'm trying to capture all bases, and so one thing I noticed though when you were initially talking about how to install the patch for Inazuma 11 Go Galaxy, you showed us how to download and install Luma 3DS. So, have you used this method in the past to beta test the game and stuff?
I did this process for one game before Inazuma 11 Go Galaxy, but I also kind of made myself do that, knowing that it was going to be important for Galaxy in the future. There was two Japanese games that I bought from the same order, and one was Daigyakuten Saiban, which is nowadays known as the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. But this was just the first one out of the two. That had a fan dub long before it ever seemed like the game was going to get an official localization. No one could really believe that actually happened in the end. So long before that game released officially, I played it on a 3DS on a Japanese cartridge with the fan patch put on top of it. So by the time I'd done that, I was already part of the Galaxy team, but I'd never really known how it was going to work until I actually tried it out with a game. And so I kind of bought Go Galaxy in the same order, knowing this is eventually what I'm going to be able to do. But the Great Ace Attorney was essentially my practice run on how to remove the region lock from a 3DS and how to install a fan patch on top of an official cartridge. Because it is the most legal way of doing it. And the one that supports the original game and its developers the most, unless they do suddenly turn around and give you an official translation. But I definitely don't think that's happening for Galaxy. But yeah, so that was what taught me the process. And then, for the sake of the walkthrough, if I'd modded an old 3DS for that Ace Attorney and the test playthrough of Go Galaxy, then I could, on my 3DS capture board, kind of do the process again and record it this time for the sake of making the installation guide for Galaxy. It's just unfortunate that 3 weeks after that guide came out, Nintendo released a software update for the 3DS and completely invalidated it. And so now the process has changed. The website has got updates on how to get around that. 3ds.hacks.guide were immediately on the ball with, okay, now we've got version 14 of the 3DS out of nowhere. This is how you can do it to this day. Just my video didn't stay accurate for very long, and that's a shame because I was sitting on the recording for months. I recorded it in January, and we waited until June to release it alongside the patch itself. And only in July does this new software update for the 3DS hit, and it was a real shame. But yeah, so that was the learning process. Great Ace Attorney first, into Inazuma, into the guide, into the future without a guide, I guess.
It's very interesting, though. I didn't expect Nintendo to continue releasing software updates for the 3DS. That is insanity.
I don't think anybody did, and I think the only thing they did add was anti-piracy stuff. So, i.e., literally just invalidating the guide, and that was it. And it didn't exactly work. They still found another method, just not one that I've got on video.
Wow. So, given that, are wireless play functionalities and the Wi-Fi keys still intact in the game? Do you know?
It's not something I've properly tested, but in theory, yes. When I've never played a multiplayer match on Go Galaxy yet because I've not had anyone to do that with, but I have done trading features between myself and the other hacked, region lock removed 3DS. Because I basically wanted to take my characters from my second-hand copy of Big Bang that I got with the Great Ace Attorney, send them over to Supernova, and then restart that copy of Big Bang for the Let's Play. And I was able to transfer all of those characters, like Faye and Bylong, etc., over from Big Bang to Supernova, but it did crash quite a lot of times in the process. I seem to have a process of, I would do one successful trade, it would work, the character would be remembered, then the console would crash, and then I'd have to turn it back on again, do one more trade, and then it would crash. So I've not tested with matches. I get the feeling if it's the same, it would probably let you do a whole match and then crash. But it's something that just needs to be tested as soon as I can find someone who's crazy enough to own a region-free 3DS with Inazuma 11 Go Galaxy on it.
If another one of these fan projects come along, do you intend on supporting it the same way as you did for this one?
There's not really any Inazuma 11 games that you could really do this with other than Go Galaxy. Sure, there's some of the Strikers games that have a limited amount of English, wording in them that could be English, but most people play that game competitively without even needing the dialogue, and that's the only Inazuma thing that could happen. Would I fan translate a game that's not Inazuma? I possibly wouldn't have a good reason to do that. Wouldn't necessarily tie into my needs, and boy, that sure did take up a lot of time to do one game. I think I've always kind of had in the back of my mind, if there's something that deserves a fan translation that would be loosely relevant to me, it would maybe be the other Dan Bolsenki games, because we only ever had Little Battlers Experience, the original one, get an official localization, and then the other two for 3DS are still Japan exclusive. But going into a fan translation is a lot, and even then, would I be part of the same team? Would it be the same team doing something else? I don't know, but we're still working on the English language voice acted patch anyway, so there's the end is not in sight for Galaxy regardless.
Well, that's good. Given that you and a lot of other people on the localization team were very much in charge of the dialogue and making sure the entire game was like as close to the official dub as possible. So, are there any jokes, puns, or references in the game that you guys probably added?
The one that I always see the most in people's reactions is a line in the inner link that's meant to be about Zippy and Frank doing some little maths calculations. And this wasn't my line. In fact, I don't even know who did write it, but there's one line that we localized as 2 + 2 is 4 something something zippy maths. And this was like a staunch exception to the official dubbing style. It's like, okay, what if they officially dubbed it but in 2019? If they did it in 2016, then a quick maths joke wasn't going to be possible, but it was near enough to what they were saying anyway that we could kind of slot that one in there, and it always tends to get a reaction, hopefully in a good way. It certainly makes me giggle. I didn't see it until I played the game either, but somebody in there thought to put 2 + 2 is 4 zippy maths in the inner link, and I think that's marvellous. The main challenge for me was, when JP's talking, you want it to sound a bit French. When Ricardo's talking, you want it to sound a bit Italian. Trouble is, you don't know who's talking in the text editor. You've just got to kind of work it out. So there will be plenty of times that I failed to give a bit of regional accent to the right characters, which kind of deserves an update. But yeah, it's about knowing. And then it was whether we wanted to create any extra dub-style accents for the new characters. And in the end, we didn't kind of come up with any that we really wanted, because if you think Terry, a basketballer, okay, he's probably quite American, but that doesn't change his dialogue too much. Frank, he's like a boxer, he's probably kind of gritty British guy, but that's how the characters are written anyway. Keenan, he's like a Sherlock British detective as well. Zippy, nerdy mathematician, also sounding kind of British. You can never really predict what a localization style would be. We do always wonder about Cherise Blossom, because she's got a very, very French name, and it kind of makes you think, would they go with French-style writing for her? But then we also have JP on the team, and then there's already been Joan of Arc and Hugh and all of the other characters in the France chapter of Chronostones, and we just kind of thought, enough's enough, we're not having another French character. But maybe they would have done, who knows? So we didn't get to give anyone too much of a flair, but I at least gave Keenan a Scottish accent in my Let's Play. That was a little passion thing, even if it didn't actually go into the game's writing.
Yeah, I mean, throughout your in all of your Let's Plays, you've given these characters these all little nice accents. They're very entertaining, so it's kind of nice to see them reflected in the game itself. So, what was your favorite part of development, that being said?
Probably the playtesting for me, because that was the first time I'd ever played Go Galaxy in my life. It came out in 2013, and I did that whole test run in 2020. And things as simple as just learning you can walk up to a football in the overworld and then dribble it alongside you, or doing the hoverboarding in the Silica planet that I'd never seen before. I was surprised by how much about the game I didn't know, considering I'd already seen the anime season. But there's lots of little quirks in that game to make it fun and unique, and I got to experience all that while being productive in fixing the dialogue and passing that on to the team to make the game even better for when the general public got to have a go with it. So yeah, I played for so many hours in the opening stretches. That was the rewarding bit for me.
Wow. So, that being said, what, how do I phrase this? What is next after Go Galaxy? What are your plans, being that, Go Galaxy is essentially the last game in the Inazuma 11 series?
You mean for me as a Let's Player, or for working on Little Battlers experience is something I've always wanted to do as a Let's Play. I'm never really sure which is going to be next necessarily. That's the kind of decision I'll come to after Galaxy is done, because who knows how long that's going to take. But I'd always want to do miscellaneous Inazuma 11 content for as long as I can. I think that Rhythm Thief is a very fun 3DS game that's kind of quietly suitable for something I'd want to do. Little Battler's Experience is the most definite one that I would want to do once all the Inazuma games are fully done, but I also don't want to let go of the Inazuma side of the channel, and we always want to find ways to keep that involved.
Do you believe that the Great Road to Heroes game for the Nintendo Switch will come out in 2023? And if so, like, do you intend on like dropping everything you're going to do to like go play that game?
I certainly don't have enough faith to think it will come out in 2023. I think that's a very tentative pushback, which is at least further away than all the previous pushbacks, so it's nice that they had some sense of realism, but I still don't really have the faith in it to actually meet that deadline. But if it does, would I drop everything to cover it straight away? I don't think so, honestly. I can think of plenty of people that would. I'm sure I could count on seeing an HK16 Let's Play straight away. Even True Pyro shouted the old classic Inazuma 11 YouTuber before I was around. He'd probably come back and give that a go. Who knows? Kai Size, that was a prominent guy back in the day. I think the main thing, though, is that we'd see a lot of new people covering Great Road of Heroes on day one, because, you know, it is a trend. Every game's got to have its day one Let's Players, and Great Road of Heroes might well be covered by someone who's just never done Inazuma before or been noticed. But they could rise up. And I've never really been a day one Let's Player type of guy. I've always been more of a Chugger Conroy to learn as much about a game as I can and try to make more so the definitive Let's Play, if at all possible, that's as researched and familiarized as I can do. So with Great Road of Heroes, I wouldn't cover it straight away. I'd maybe record like my first hour playing the game or a couple of multiplayer matches, but I would want to do the Let's Play properly in my eyes and actually play through it for however long it takes in my own time, and then try to make, rather than the first Let's Play of the game, I would want to make the best Let's Play of the game, to the best of my abilities anyway. So yeah, we're talking very distant future for that. I would certainly cover it, there's no doubt about that, but certainly not a drop everything type of deal.
Do you think Inazuma 11 is gaining popularity or has been gaining popularity in recent years?
I think it's not lost popularity as quickly as you would expect. I'm seeing more and more people talking about it on Twitter all of the time. If it was gaining popularity, then maybe we would have seen seasons like Ares and Orion do a little bit better. I don't think it's necessarily going up, or at least not very much, but the fans it has seem to not be going anywhere, and it's done a great job at holding on to its greatest fans. And certainly from our community's perspective, we're starting to see it look like it's growing, because we're finally bridging the gap between the languages a bit. We always had separate Spanish communities, separate Italian ones, separate French ones, but just over this past year and a bit, we're really starting to see all these communities engage with each other now, just creating a happier and bigger circle for everyone to take part in, and I think that's brilliant. Just not necessarily going to reflect on the sales, eh?
Yeah, definitely. Do you think there's going to be another anime season of Inazuma 11?
I don't think so. Great Road of Heroes just seems to be some kind of collection for all of the fan favourite characters that have appeared up to this point, to put them in one setting and let you play through pretty much a retelling of Inazuma 1, from my understanding. Yeah, with the only new character probably being the main hero manager guy. It certainly doesn't present an anime season to go alongside it, and you can kind of tell with Ares and Orion, those two final seasons were retreading a lot of old ground and doing less and less new stuff for themselves. Even though I enjoyed them, it did kind of set the impression that this was going to be it for the Inazuma anime. There's not really much more to go from here unless they did something completely wild like the stories of Chronostones in Galaxy. But if that's what they wanted to do, then I don't think Ares and Orion would have turned out the way they did.
You know, one thing I always okay. So this is like going away from the game development. I don't know how I got myself on this path, but one anime that I thought would be really interesting to see is seeing like a full-on either LBX versus Inazuma 11 anime. Like we had the movie, yeah, but like having it as an official series, or like Yokai Watch and Inazuma 11. That those would be really an ideal thing. Even though we did see the main character, I forgot the name, Nate. There we go, Nate, do fire tornado at least once in the show. So what would you think would be an ideal crossover?
I'm a big fan of the Little Battlers Experience games. I haven't seen too much of the anime, but even I, as an actual fan and player of the Little Battlers Experience games, even I struggled a little bit with the movie when it was purely the Danball Senki content of the robots doing their own little special moves in their own little subplot. And certainly anyone who's completely unfamiliar with LBX, I think struggled a lot with that section of the movie. So I think as a series, it probably wouldn't really work. The Inazuma fans would want their Inazuma stuff, and then Danball Senki would take up half the episode with bits that people care less about. I don't think crossovers is really the way for Inazuma, or really most series. I'd like to see it cross over with Super Smash Brothers by putting Mark Evans into Smash as a playable character. That would be great. But no, I think if Inazuma's going to do more seasons, it should be sticking to itself. Maybe this Megaton Masashi thing that Level 5's working on would be the next obvious choice for them to try and slot in. I don't really know too much about it. But no, I'd want to see them do kind of, just a brand new story by themselves or maybe an FFI like Orion, but do it properly without all the cheating stuff, or just come up with something utterly wild like Chronostones was. But I think it needs to be kind of reboot style without using the same characters again if they're going to do anything new, because we've had 8 seasons now and 2 different timelines of the same thing. So yeah, there's not much room to go forwards, I think, but something brand new would probably be the best thing for it.
Thank you, Tail, and the rest of the Level 10 team for your talent and hard work into making this all possible. You've done a tremendous service for this community and even the world. Now, if you're looking for some more content about Inazuma 11 Go Galaxy, be sure to check out the website of this patch, where you can find the channels and social media outlets of those who made this all possible. Those will be linked in the video description. However, I've been me, and you've been you. Till next.